Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Zevachim, Daf Yomi, Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph 76a1, says the Gemara. We were talking about right now the following. We said, Lecha Techila, are you going to tell me now that are you going to permit to minimize the time of eating Kodesh, even Lecha Techila? Eight Ve'abaye, Abaye is going to come and he's going to ask a question. And this is where we're starting today, even though we did it yesterday. V'kulan rasha'in kohanim leshanot b'achilatan. All the korbanot, the kohanim are allowed to change in the form of the eating it, which means that they could eat it, whether it's going to be tzluin, shlukin, vushalin. They could come and they could eat it roasted, baked, cooked, grilled, any other name that you want to call it. They could eat it whichever way that they want. Huh? Yeah? And he says, v'latet letochan, and they could put tavlinim. What type of tavlinim? Tavlinim are spices, condiments. Of what? Of chulin. And tavlinim of terumah. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon. So now, what is the problem now? Terumah. Everyone knows what terumah is? What's terumah? What's terumah? No, terumah is not maaser sheni. What's terumah? Kohanim. Very good. So, no, that's terumah gedolah. Right, but okay, terumah gedolah, that's good. Terumah gedolah. Or Trumat Maaser, whatever it is, right? Which is Maaser Mina Maaser, right? The second 10% that goes from the Levi to the Kohen. So now Truma could only be eaten by the Kohen. Okay. What happens now? Is there an expiration date on Truma?
It should.
No.
No. What does that mean? The Kohen could eat it, even if it's food.
Gonna get twisted.
Fine. Okay, you're talking about the naturally getting wasted.
Dried beans,
right?
They can stay forever.
Exactly. Let's say you have a dried beans. Okay, 10 years, 20 years, whatever you want. Okay, whatever you want. Right? Fine. But, right? But for sure, right? But let's say, right? There's no expiry date, which means that I could have it for whatever I want. The second that I put tavlinim, I mean condiments. So spices, how long do spices last? Years. Yeah, years you could have spices. I took these spices of Truma and I added it to the Korban. So now all of a sudden, I put an expiration date on the Truma. Why? Because beforehand, this Truma, I could have eaten it for the next 10 years. Now that I come and add it to a Korban, the Korban has an expiration date. Some Korbanot are Yom Valayla, as we mentioned this morning very nicely, as somebody read it out loud, right? If you were here. Yeah? Right? What does that mean? That means, right, that, right, which means, right, that what, right, which means that,
I mean, it's not a Kiddush, Rabbi. It's no big deal what you're saying. It makes perfect sense.
Yes.
You don't have to keep explaining.
So the question, though, that the Gemara is saying is, are you going to tell me that lechatchila, are you allowed to come and to do such a thing? Because you are putting an expiration date on something that doesn't have an expiration date. So the Gemara answers, Elmaleh, he comes and he answers him, hanach letrumat tavlin, that it's only going to be midrabanan, which means that it's only truma midrabanan. And since it's only Truma Midrabanan, technically speaking, it doesn't have Kiddush at all. And since it doesn't have Kiddush at all, that's why the rabbis were lenient and they didn't prohibit bringing it, that it would become Pasul. Because now if I attached it to Kurban, certain Kurbanot, you only have 1 day to eat it. Other Kurbanot, you have 2 days and 1 night, right? But still, whichever one it is, you still are putting an expiration date on it. So now let's say it already passed expiration, you have to burn it. Because it's a korban that already passed the time. It's called notar. Notar are leftovers. Leftovers you have to burn. And you're not allowed to burn turuma usually, right? Unless it becomes tameh. So you're not allowed to do that. But he says that since anyway it was only a din d'Rabbanan, that's why you're allowed to do this. Okay? That's why. So that means technically he says, don't come and bring me a proof from tavlinim, from condiments, because condiments is only d'Rabbanan turuma, and that's why they were lenient and they said such a halacha that you could do so.
And so
Okay?
the fact that it didn't feel, it's not a love or something.
No. That's what he said. Since it's the Rabbanan, technically there was no Yisur at all, so therefore we don't care that he's putting it on the thing.
Not spices.
No, that's what he says. It's only Truma Midrabbanan. That's why. It's only Midrabbanan. So 8th. So we're going to ask the following question now. En lochin Truma bekesef maaseh. You're not allowed to come and take, right, with the kesef of maaseh sheni, you cannot come and get Tiruma. Why? because anybody that's going to buy with kesef maaser sheni, you could only eat it in Yerushalayim. So it comes out that now you're putting a gvul, you're putting a borders around it. So again, you're causing a loss. One more time, maaser sheni. Which years, doctor? Which years maaser sheni? What? Thank you. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5 is maaser sheni. Okay? And 3, 6 is maaser ani. Thank you very much. So therefore, if you're going to tell me now that you have maaser sheni, where is maaser sheni eaten? Only inside the walls of Jerusalem. And therefore, so for example, when I'm going to go to do aliyah regel, I'm going to take this money of maaser sheni and I'm going to what? I'm going to buy my shawarma in Eretz Yisrael. Right? So what happens? All right? Whatever you want to buy in Eretz Yisrael. So what happens now is as follows. When I'm going to come and I'm going to buy with the money of maaser sheni, Teruma, so again, I did the same thing. I just put a limit on the Teruma. Beforehand, I could have eaten the Teruma anywhere I wanted in the world. And now that you bought it with Maaser Shani, money, what happens? Now I just put a gvul. I put a border. What's the border that you could only eat in Yerushalayim? So I minimized, right, what it is. Rabbi Shimon says it's mutar. So you see from here that Rabbi Shimon, even lechatchila, is going to come and permit you to put like a time effect or a border, or I don't know what you want to call it exactly, with meaning that you're putting a limitation on the food that you're doing, and there's no problem. And this is going to be a din even lechatechila. So ishtikle. He kept quiet. He didn't have an answer.
Rava.
Yeah. Rava shatak. Yeah, he was quiet. He didn't have an answer. So tiata lekamed Rav Yosef. So when they came in front of Rav Yosef, Amar he comes and he answers. Amai lotet ve'meha. Why didn't you ask from Rava from this Mishnah? It says, En mevashlin yerek shel shavi'it beshemen shel truma shelo yevi'o levet hapesul. Right? Why are you not going to come and cook yerek of shavi'it, or shemitah basically, shavi'it or shemitah, right? So you're not going to cook a vegetable of shemitah with a shemen of truma shelo yevi'o levet hapesul, that you're not going to make it pasul.
This has to be destroyed once it's no longer.
Yes. So he says here, since you're obligated to eat this vegetables with the shemen, which is nivlabo, before the time of the biur, so it comes out, and Rabbi Shimon here says you're allowed to cook it. So again, you see from here that Rabbi Shimon does not prohibit bringing something that is going to become pasul, even lechatchila. So Abaye comes and he answers Rav Yosef, "Velav mi otvina mehad tavlin," but I already asked from tavlin, and he told me hanach letumat tavlin d'Rabbanan. Hachanami trumat yerek is only d'Rabbanan. So Abaye, one more time. What happened is that Abaye comes and he asks a question against Rava. He stumped Rava. Rava didn't have an answer. He comes to Rav Yosef. Remember, Rav Yosef is the rabbi of Abaye Rava. And Rav Yosef comes and he says, 1 second, why didn't you ask him from the shemen? You have a Mishnah Mefureshet. So he comes and he answers his Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, I already came and I asked him from the Tavlanim. And what did he answer me? That it's the Rabbanan. He says, Salam and Shol. He says, this is also the Rabbanan. So therefore, that's why I didn't ask him from this Mishnah. Because also by the shemen, it's also going to be Turma the Rabbanan. Once it's Rabbanan.
And not like wheat or something.
So, if so, he should have been written the opposite. Yerek shel truma b'shemen shel shavi'it. What about you have yerek of truma and shemen of shavi'it? And Rabbi Shimon says that it's going to be permitted. So here you have the exact opposite of a case. The yerek was of truma and the shemen was of shavi'it, and still it's going to be permitted. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon, right? He says that he did say it's mutar. Amali diarav, but he said that's only because they were already mitarev. So hachanami diarev. So to here we're already talking about if it was mitarev, meaning if it's going to be mitarev already, so therefore it already got mixed up. So if it's already mixed up, I can't ask a question from there. So idarev, if you're going to tell me that it got mixed up, so my time out the Rabbanan, what's the reasoning why the Rabbanan come and they say you're not allowed to cook the tar of it? He says if the shemen is already balua, it's already absorbed inside of these vegetables, so that's it. There's nothing here, right? What's the question? So he says, midehava ashamu shlamim. It's going to be like an asham and the shlamim. What does that mean? He says, when you have an asham and shlamim, they got mixed up. What did the Mishnah say? That even though the korbanot got mixed up, the chachamim do not permit you to bring it like a shlamim to become a psul. And therefore, right, because remember, the shlamim you're allowed to eat 2 days and 2 days and 1 night, and the asham is only going to be 1 day and 1 night. But technically speaking, we do until chatzot, right? That's what we say. We always say liyom v'layla al chatzot. So liyom v'layla really meant is day and night time. But the rabbis came. They said no, ad chatzot until chatzot. I mean, you don't have the full morning, right? You don't have the after midnight. Okay. So he says midami. Can you compare both cases? Hatam over there in the Mishnah, it letakanta beriyah. There you could come and you could leave it grazing. And once it gets grazing, it's going to get a blemish. And once you get a blemish, you come and you buy another animal. Here, in this case, have shemen of truma. You can't do anything with it. So halo damin lelechatikha shebachatichot. So that's going to be like one piece that's going with other pieces. The kevan de letakanta, because there's no going to be takana. The ochel kechamush bahen. So therefore, we're always going to go like the stricter of the foods. Okay, so matkif la Ravina. So Ravina comes and he asks the following question: Midami, are you going to tell me that you can compare both cases? Chaticha b'chatichot let la takanta klal. He says one chaticha with other chatichot, there's no takana whatsoever, right? Hi, but however though, right? Because if it becomes a suru, that's it. He says, but here in this tarovet, there is a takana. What do? You do
Squeeze the
schita.
oil.
You squeeze the oil out, and if you squeeze the oil out, that's it. So now it's going to be fine. So says the Gemara.
Use the oil?
So it says the Gemara, Rav Yosef, how are you going to squeeze it? Nischot tuva. If you're going to start squeezing it too much, kamafsid b'shvit, you're ruining the fruits. V'nischot furta, if you're only going to do it a little bit, so at the end of the day, it's mixed. So therefore, it doesn't help. That's why he doesn't hold of this. Okay, so 8 ways. So we're going to ask the following question then. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, right? We're talking about now a metzorah. And he says like this, Lemachurat, the day after he comes and he cuts his hair and everything, right? Which is basically on the 8th day that it becomes pure. Mevi ashamo velugoimo. So he's going to bring a korban asham, a guilt offering, and a log, right? This is a log of shemen. Remember, a log is 4 times of what we call a revi'it, because the revi'it is a revi'it of a log. So if I say that a revi'it is 86 milliliters, so 4 times 86, right, is going to be what? Is going to be the log. If I'm going to hold that the log is 150 milliliters, so then 600 milliliters is a log, right? But it's always times 4. That's all that you're doing, okay?
So you divide the log by.
Yeah, you multiply by 4 in order to get the full log, okay? Ve'omer. Now he's going to say, right? Im shel metzorah, right? If this korban, he says that he's a metzorah muchlat, that he became pure, right? He was cured, and he's going to be chayav. Harez hasham zelugo. So this is going to be his hasham and his log. Yeah, look at Ayin Vav Amubet. V'imlav. Now, what happens if it wasn't a metzorah, right? Because obviously this case was a doubt. So he comes and he says he's mistapek if he's a metzorah muchlat, right, or not. So he comes and he says, so in such a case, asham zeh shel shamen nedava. So then it's a shlamim, but of a nedava. It's a present, right? You could always bring a present. Remember that. You can't bring an asham as a present, but you could bring a shalmeh, right, nedava. So he says ve'oto asham ta'un shchiteto betzafon. Now that asham has to be done in the north. Why does it have to be done in the north? Because I don't know what it is. Is it going to be considered an asham? Or is it going to be considered shalmei nedava? Now, an asham. Very good. The kochek kadashim, meaning anything which is going to be an olah, chatat, and an asham, right? Which is a burnt offering, sin offering, and guilt offering. All those which are kochek kadashim, holy of holies, have to be in the north. Shechitatam batzafon. But if it's going to be a shlamim, a peace offering, doesn't matter which type of peace offering, it could be bechol makom bazara, any place in the entire azara. So therefore, but since here I've got a doubt, and I don't know if this is going to be an asham or this is going to be ma. אני לא יודע אם זה יהיה השם או זה יהיה מה, או זה יהיה שלמים, שלמים. So you have to do it in the tzafon, in the north, right? ומתן בהונות, right? And then you're going to have מתן בהונות. What is מתן בהונות? The blood, right? With your fingers. וסמיכה, smicha, the leaning of the animal. nesachim, wine libation. ותנופת חזה ושוק, waving of the thigh and the chest area. V'ne'echalim, which is like the shlamim, meaning that what we're doing here is that we're doing the stringency of both. So, mitzad shechita, you have to do the stringency that has to be done in the north. Mitzad matan damim, right? You're going to do it, right? Also in bonot, right? Which is going to be like an asham metzorah. To do a semicha, to do a nesachim, that he says trufat shechaz v'shok, that's like a shlamim. Ne'echal yom v'layla, right? It's going to be eaten only by 1 day, 1 night, so that's like an asham. So it means we're taking the stringencies of both korbanot, and since we don't know which korban you have to bring, we bring like the stringencies of both. Kapish? Makes sense, no? Stringencies of both. So answers the Gemara, right? So it's mashma that Rabbi Shimon comes and he permits you to bring kodshim, even though it's going to become pasul. Why? Because if you're going to tell me that this is a shlamim, usually I'm supposed to have 2 days and 1 night, and all of a sudden you told me now you only have 1 day and 1 night, because now I'm not sure if it's an asham or a shlamim. So answers the Gemara, tikune gavra shani. He says it's different when you want to fix a human being, because in this case, right, Rabbi Shimon says you're allowed to permit it in order for him to eat kodshim. Meaning, here, this is the only way to fix the guy. So since it's the only way to fix the guy is by coming and doing this, and you have to bring a korban, and it's going to be that it depends what the case is, right? That it has to be in such a fashion, so therefore it's going to be permitted in such a case. Okay? So says the Gemara, Hatei Hasham, that's good to do with the Hasham, because we just answered up, how do you do with the Hasham? Because you're bringing an Hasham, but technically speaking, maybe it's an Hasham, maybe it's a Shilmin and Deva, so you do the stringencies of both. But what about with the log? You have the oil. What do you do with the log? Right? Make a So he says, why? Because usually you do not bring a log with a shlamim. You only bring it with an asham mitzorah. So he says, the amar log no. The log is a nedava. Meaning, if he's a mitzorah, this log is for his mitzorah. And if he's not mitzorah, it's a present. You could bring a present as a wine, oil.
Oil, what do they do? Drink it?
No. They bring it as a korban.
You mean they just pour it on the thing and it's burned up?
Yes. Okay. So now he comes and he says the following: V'dilma alav mitzorahu. He says, really, be'emet, I'm going to say maybe he's not a mitzorah. Ubay mikamas. So now he comes and he says, so if so, you have to take the comets of the shemen and you have to bring it on the mizbeach, right? Which means if you're going to stam,
the kohen can eat the rest of the oil. Only your comets.
Yes, exactly. Which means like this: if right now it's not the mitzorah though. Well, remember this is a regular oil offering. If a person comes and he's going to bring a korban of shemen, so he only brings the comets on the mizbeach, and all the rest he's allowed to have it. So therefore, if right now this is only a oil offering because you just said it's a present, so then all you need is the comets, and here you're bringing the entire thing. So yes, so he comes and he says, "You're right, the makmitz. You're right. You only did a comets." So says the Gemara, "Okay, fine, but if it's comets, maybe it's a mitzorah ubay matan sheva. So now you have to do sheva hazaot on the kodesh kodeshim, meaning you take from the oil and you're going to sprinkle it 7 times, right opposite, exactly like we do on the blood." Like this, the same thing. Huh? Yeah, whatever you could grab in your hand like this, and you pour it inside. That's it.
Yeah, but
so he comes and he says, "That's fine. That's fine."
Yeah.
So he says, "You need matan sheva." So answers the Gemara, "You did that as well. You did the matan sheva, the yaiv." So he says, "V'achasele." He says, "Okay, but now you're lacking now because if you took away already from the kmitza, right, and you took away also from the, so then what's going on?" So he says, "The maite purta." You took a little bit of it, right, umalile, and you filled it up until the shiur. The Tanan was, we learned in the Mishnah, chaser log ad shelo yatzak yimalenu. What happens if it became chaser until you didn't do the yitzika, which means that you didn't do it of the sprinkling? Yimalenu, you could just fill it up again, and that's it. There's no problem. So you do the same thing. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. He says, we know that the shemen, right? He says, if it's not a mitzorah, the shemen needs a korban nedava, so then you have to bring the komets on the mizbeach. So he says, you did bring it on the mizbeach. So he says, Eimat, but when? When did you do this exactly? If you already did the sprinkling the 7 times on the Kodesh Kodashim, right, on the wall of the Kodesh Kodashim, right, on the curtain, so havilu shinaim shechashu ben kamitza laktara. So that's called shinaim, which is lacking between the kamitza and aktara. She'en maktirim, right? They're not going to bring the kometz alahen, right? Kol matanat shiva. Now, if you're going to tell me that it was before matanot shiva, kol shemimenu leishim hareu bebal taktiru. If right now any korban which is going to bring to the mizbeach, the other chelek is bal taktiru, which means you're not allowed to bring it on the mizbeach. So therefore, the hazat shemen is instead of aktarat mizbeach. So therefore, how do you do it? There's no remedy. One more time. Here you've got the shemen. If you're a mitzorah, you're bringing
the rule.
There's a rule, right? You're bringing the how do you call this? The mitzorah, right? Now you're bringing the log for the mitzorah, and now you're going to come and you're going to sprinkle it on the kodesh kodashim. If it's that you're bringing it as a present, so now what you're doing is you have to bring a kometz and you bring it onto the mizbeach. Now he comes and he says this. So 1 second, how do I do it exactly? Because if you're going to do the chumrah of both, you can't do it. Because when are you doing the kometz? When are you bringing this kometz? Why? He comes and he says this. If it's going to be after you sprinkled 7 times, so that's already considered the leftovers. And once it's going to be the leftovers, en maktirin to kometz alen, you cannot come and bring the komets on them because these are considered leftovers. Meaning, if I already came and I sprinkled 7 times, this is now considered leftovers. If this is leftovers, so now you can't do anything with it now. That's it. It's already too late. Now you're going to tell me, okay, fine. So it was before you sprinkled 7 times. So he says, but if it's before you sprinkled 7 times, you've got the isur of bal taktiru. Bal taktiru means you're not allowed to bring it on the mizbeach. Now, if you sprinkled 7 times, now you want to take the komets and now you're going to bring it on the mizbeach. You can't, because that's the bal taktiru. You already did this. So therefore, you've got a technical issue that how do I start? Where do I start? That it's going to be permitted for me to come. It's either oil offering of a present, or it's going to be an oil offering of a metzorah, but I have to decide. I can't use both. No. So he says, Amar of Yehuda, right? Berei de Reb Shimon ben Pazi. Says of Yehuda Berei de Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Temasik lehu l'shem etzim. He comes and he says like this. He says, no, what I'm doing is that I'm taking away the shiurei korbanot and I'm going to do it like a wood offering, right? Which is basically the shiurei etzim. And therefore I'm not over on bal taktiru, which means if I'm going to come and I'm going to bring it like the shiurei etzim, which is basically the leftovers of the wood, so therefore I'm not over on the avera of bal taktiru, you're not allowed to bring it on the mizbeach. So here I'm bringing it on the mizbeach like the shemetzim, just like wood, meaning just like wood burns, so to the oil burns. So I'm not bringing it as an oil offering, I'm bringing it like the wood. So he says the Tanya was learned in the Braita. Rabbi Eliezer says l'reach nichowah. Yeah, l'reach nichowah. Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? L'reach nichowah? So he comes and he says it's for a korban. So are you going to come and tell me that now this is going to be a korban? You just told me that it's going to be pasul for aktara. But you are allowed to bring up things which are going to be l'shem etzim. Meaning, as a korban, I cannot bring it. But for etzim, for wood on the mizbeach, I could bring it. So here, his kavanah is that it's going to be for wood on the etzim, and therefore there's no isur of bringing it.
Very well.